What the heck is that Josh post? What is that? Bachi is literally me. No other characters can come close to relating to you like her. There's no way you can convince me that I'm not Bachi. Bachi could not possibly be any more me. It's... Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to read that later. Yeah, I just want to emphasize a few things before I like go to bed. Oh, you've seen that? Oh, so Josh didn't even write that? Man, that really does sound like Josh though. So that's what I mean. Like, son, if you were here when I was like, I think Eric might have gotten, I might have been went a little overboard. But I'm like, every day I wake up and I like watch these shorts, and I'm just curating these shorts, and I'm looking at like how people are commenting and the pattern of their commenting and where all this information is coming from, and the comments of comments like Reddits now. To me, the one thing that frustrates me most, like that keeps me alive and maybe even want me to live long enough to see what humans are going to do about it, it's just that there's too I hate to say this in a way, but there is too much information for specific people in the time that they are specifically conditioned to handle. And what I mean is, not everyone can take the whatever average amount of information they are given at any particular time. So what I'm saying is, there are people who can handle the information earlier, and there are people that can handle the information later. But those individuals are not getting a moderated attention that accounts for that. There's no attempt to be doing that, to discern, to discriminate, to flow the information in a pace that's available, because it's not moderated. And I get it. Moderation can be a little scary, where like, oh, now people are determining how much I can handle. It's like, no, it could be a choice thing. Like, you watch a video, and the video could potentially even ask you how you feel about the video. And if it's terrible, well, actually, for business standpoint, they won't show you that video anymore just because of business. They don't have your heart in mind, like you as a viewer. If it's terrible, they would try to suggest something that's curated that counters that. Or maybe, hey, if you feel this makes you feel terrible, like maybe this is a little extreme, here's another take on this video. Instead, it's just another popularist take, because the algorithm just tells you what you want to see and what you don't want to see. And what happens is, if you like something enough and you follow that down a rabbit hole, effectively you will be inundated with so much information about any particular topic that, depending on how young you are or how complex your thinking approach is, it's going to reach a tipping point the more you consume it. And without the foundations of experience and wisdom and perspective to ground you at the moment, like you can develop those, you can gain those in a steady pace. Your life would be black and white. It will become like, this is my only choice. This is not my only choice. I'm a failure. I'm a success. Like, it's just going to be just ones and zeros. And not everyone, and that's what frustrates me, is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't ask for the feedback of, hey, this is catering towards you, but it's not complex enough at the moment. Like the systems we have on the internet right now. I better switch to just chatting. The systems we have right now does not tailor or safeguard a user based on their emotional and mental state capable of it. So what I mean is, it's not an AI that's behind the wheels keeping track of how emotionally stable you are or how much more willingness that you're learning or something. It's not a personalized. This sounds very ironic, but YouTube, the algorithms right now is not a personalized experience. Not in the need or complexity that helps people maintain a sustainable and healthy lifestyle. It is a personalized it's a personalized experience in the way that it gets you to continue consuming information. It doesn't stop you from consuming information. It doesn't tell you like, there's a lot of positive spins on this topic that you're having. Perhaps you might be interested in an alternative topic that kind of, right, you can't curate all this. This is really complex. Like it's difficult for a system that big to find an intelligible adaptive way to implement it. Maybe future tech will find a balance between this, but in the meantime, what's happening in this case? Well, I get frustrated when I see a person making a content that is based on a trending content, which is what you're supposed to do. The system promotes that. To be a content creator, you must emulate what I said earlier, like about the thumbnails. It's kind of like that. It emulates, you take that, you expand it, and hope to create the foothold and then expand on that. But that system also feeds back to the source of the chaotic nihilism that's happening with younger people and even older people who are incapable at the moment, incapable of handling so much complex, usually conflicting information to the point it creates inaction. Like, what do you do now? What do you do then? And that's largely goes back to the very first thing you said today, son, about the thumbnails. You do it. Do the 3. Find a workflow that works for you. Iterate on that workflow. Cut corners. Learn new techniques that adds to your workflow. And the identity will come from its practice. The moment you start digging deep and go down a rabbit hole, how to make thumbnails. You see one video, how to make thumbnails. Well, this one is this one. It's like, maybe I should break out a spreadsheet now to create a Venn diagram of overlapping elements and then combine it to correlate on the most overlapping diagrams. But do you have that skill yet? Right? Like, what I mean is, what I just described is a process that I do a lot. But that came from like 10 years of education and solving complex problems, like making complex Venn diagrams, looking at the corollary elements and then finding an approach that encompasses many of the high impact overlapping elements while taking column A, B from that stylistic. That deconstruction and reconstruction requires lots of hand-on experience. However, in the internet, what's happening when people look to do something is they're going to look for what's right and what's wrong, what people are doing from successful, credible, maybe credible as well. And they're going to try to take as much information as possible. And when they try to keep taking more information, it'll become so overwhelming to the point when you create a product, the first thing you say is, well, I don't think I've read enough, or maybe I didn't look enough. Maybe it's not even worth putting out because there's like 8 billion other things that I didn't consider. You put it out. That's the effective mindset. You have to do something with the balance of informed information. So when you do something, you'll get the appreciation of what you're looking for. So then you're no longer just sieving and spoon feeding yourself as much information as your information searching becomes directed, and that direction creates focus, and focus creates confidence. And then when you get that confidence and iteration, the next thing you do is you enter the creative process. Then you start branching out and say, all right, time to deviate my focus. How do I incorporate something that isn't in my refined process? That foundation is your core. And then now you can go and entertain all the people who conflict with you and have different opinions and stuff. But you can absorb them now and pick which one you want because you have a foundation. But acquiring skills requires the foundational mindset and reproducibility of an approach for the person to create the foundation. And right now, generally speaking, it's just easier to be told what the foundations are, as opposed to, and because it's easier, they'll look for it, but they don't stop there. You just get inundated. Like, oh, maybe this isn't enough. Let's go look for more ideas, and then more ideas. And the most alarming thing about this problem that I'm describing is I myself, I would consider myself far more experienced in solving these complex approaches with human products and whatnot, I get stuck in the same loop. Like, it took me 6 years to decide on a tripod. You might be thinking, back in the day, it was like, oh yeah, it's great. Like, you do a lot of your research. You do a lot of research, and then you bought the best, quote unquote, the best product. There is also doing too much. And then when you do too much, you no longer act. And because, say, like, the amount of time you took, there's a balance. Like, if you waited 6 months to finally decide on a project, you are 6 months gone on even getting the experience. So you just lost 6 months of experience as well. There's a trade-off. You could sacrifice 1 month of early experience, for example, to gain 3 months of personal experience at the cost of 3 months of research, for example. So there's this balance, and it's become so overwhelming now that when people research something, they won't ever even come to doing the thing anymore because they are so apprehensive that they feel responsible for knowing the beginning of time of their craft in order to start somewhere. And that is really scary. It's stopping kids from leaving the nest. It's stopping kids from getting a job. It's stopping kids from taking a risk on something that they think somehow they were able to tell from their favorite influencer that they can't possibly know enough. It's stopping people who think they are one thing and incapable of being another thing. Like, finding fun in something that was unfun at first is not a possibility because the vast majority of people said it was not fun. So you no longer have an identity or individual in practical problem solving for yourself. You no longer evaluate yourself and your own opinions. You reflexively, here's a big metagame. Individuals who dislike something because others like it in order to form an identity. So you become the contrarian. And that is a legitimate, really real and frequent thing. Someone who's a contrarian. So, hey, wow, this game is so popular, I hate it. It's like, that's my identity. I'm the contrarian. I don't want to be a fanboy. That was like the old school way where, oh, this is popular, the hipster. But now this bleeds into pretty much anything because everything has a quantification now. What do you think about what do you think about this TikTok trend? It's like, well, I hate it because I don't agree with it. Yes, you by coincidence actually dislike everything. So you have an identity that's not dependent. But generally speaking, many's identity is formed inappropriately. And when I'm being inappropriately, I mean, I'm not even sure. When you see these people, they would do something, and then that's something that they want to do, conflicts with what they said they don't like, because everyone likes the thing they like. So for example, I don't want to touch grass, because touching grass means something. It's like, well, what do you do for fun? Oh, I play sports. It's like, so how does that work with not touching grass? Like, it doesn't. Like, no, I just play indoors. Like, well, you could play sports outdoors too. In fact, you can probably get a lot of people to play with you in sports. It's like, well, I don't want to get associated with this. I'm like, okay, well, you have to understand problem solving. You are doing something that prevents you from you are doing something that prevents you from getting something that you like. Now you have to ask yourself, is the thing you're doing making you less, putting you in a situation, preventing you from getting what you want just because of the principle? So if your favorite dude, like the person you listen to every day, said this is bad, but what you want means you like this thing, but the dude is telling you it's bad, I hope you don't end up believing it's bad just because this dude, and clearly whatever you're doing requires this thing. That's kind of what I'm saying here as well. Being a contrarian or being contradictory to yourself because of the internet. Like, for example, what is it? Like, bro science. Bro science is a great example. Like, oh, you can't, like, this is the best way for hypertrophy and that way is the best for hypertrophy. It's like, can you do it? Like, is it sustainable? It's like, it doesn't have to be the best way. It can be your way as long as it's proficient enough. Like, the best way causes you to stop, yet you want it. You want this thing. You want hypertrophy. Yet, because the internet has decided unanimously that for now that this is the best way for hypertrophy, if you can't do this way, you're gonna give up. But you really want this. It's like, well, do you want it or don't you want it? Because if you really want it, you don't have to do it the best way. You have to do it the way that's adapted to your success. That is the best way. The best way is your way leading to sustainability, not the best way someone else did. You can use it as an inspiration, take from it, but if it's not a mirror of that, you're not that person. You're your own identity. So whenever someone says something like, oh, I'm not going to do this, this guy makes this seem so hard, so you don't have to do it that way. Like, take what you can do, switch it up a little, like, problem solve. So kids just rule off things like, oh, there's no way I would want to do this because I already saw what other people do. It's like, there's no way you can possibly know what your way of doing this is going to end up being. You can try it and see if it's not for you. Can you change it up a little bit? Well, if you can't, you're lacking problem solving abilities. Like, if you really want this, you probably be able to change it up. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And that is the false impression I do feel millennials and boomers and like anyone older is giving flack for the younger audience and the younger generation. And I don't think the younger generation is soft because of that. I think they are so prescribed to be able to do the best way all the time that they quit right away. Millennials and boomers, I include I'm a millennial. We weren't told every day, day in and day out, voluntarily by a medium that, hey, oh, you missed the mark on this. You might as well quit now, because this is the best way. If you don't do the best way, you're just don't bother. We did things and we're like, we don't really know what the best way is. Let's just keep doing, like, this is my way, it works, so don't break it, don't change it if it ain't broke, it's working. Spin the wheel and got it going. The new generation is like, oh yeah, this is the best way. If you're not doing it this way, you're wasting your time. Stop. Just give up. Give up already. It's fine. Like, you're not a superstar. That's kind of how I feel. It's nihilism. That is a state of nihilism. There's so much information, so much things that create such unbelievable confidence on solutions that the people who are watching no longer believe they have a say or problem solving to make it work for them. So now you go around and say, I don't have 1 million subscribers by 1 month. I'm going to fail as a content creator. Like, well, I mean, getting 10,000 subscribers seems pretty solid. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because what people popularize is how you're going to evaluate yourself. And the kids are going to evaluate themselves based on some arbitrary, non-standardized perspective that is rightfully and deservingly popularized by those who succeeded. Like, I'm not saying they're not entitled to do that, and they deserve the success. They're popularizing it. However, in my opinion, if I'm trying to be as responsible as possible, for me, if they consider themselves a professional, they should be also held accountable, at least to some extent, or some feeling of accountability, for providing disclaimers, for providing alternatives, for informing that their method does not guarantee things. Offer a chill pill, offer a contingency plan. Like, oh, hey, I'm a millionaire because I follow these 10 steps. Buy my book. No, it's more like, and there are content creators that do this. I am really grateful to those content creators that go a step beyond now. Not only there are content creators who literally have started, like, for example, for fitness, they start supplement companies. They own a supplement company, but their content demonstrates and tells them, like, no, please do not think that these are magic pills. Like, I own a $1 million supplement company, but do not for once think and believe that I'm going to tell you supplements is like a substitute for this and a substitute for that, a magic pill for that. That stuff is a load of BS. And that's great. I'm glad there's some normalization right now of standards and actually sticking to foundational work and organizational work at the expense of even their pocketbooks. But that's so not the norm. That is absolutely not the norm. The norm is you're going to get truths, you're going to get facts and stuff, but all the facts are filtered in a way that it benefits the person. And one day, in my opinion, and I'm just going to leave with this sentiment. One day, I'm going to feel that I come on the internet, I'm going to see the internet, consume as media, and I'm going to feel that more than 50% of the time, I don't think this person has an ulterior, opportunistic motive to filter the information that clearly is missing in the video. And you might be wondering, what kind of information? That is up to a person who has critical thinking as a lifestyle. An adult that has experience to see, hey, what about the opposite? What about option C, option D? not everyone has that privilege or ability, and they develop that type of line of thinking through experience, trial and error. And the individuals who have those are clearly opportunistic enough to know they are preying on people's ignorance, and not because of ignorance of semantics like fact checking and stuff. No, they are preying on the lack of self-awareness and mindset and human condition. Microtransactions are effective because the target audience are unaware and understand the intricacies and the lacking of their ability to know they are being manipulated. And I don't actually hold it against businesses either. That is the most efficient practice to make money. The most efficient way to make content creation, viral videos, those are the ways. Those systems are incentivized, so they are being pragmatic. So they are more than entitled to doing that. However, I would love to see a counter force that gives the tools to anyone who's seeking a remedy to this confusion and this depression and nihilism and stuff. There's, in my opinion, that would be a great counterforce. What would happen then? No, I'm not stealing the businesses of the other opportunists. Instead, it would probably encourage them and cause them to reform to appeal to a different type of group. Now, you could say, oh, to make money and compete, they'll still compete for each other, right? They're still going to compete against you, but they're going to compete to a more competent audience, to an audience like now they have to level up their game. Now the vast majority of individuals who consume this product have critical thinking skills and ability to problem solve. And how do you convince those people? Well, up your game. There's probably going to be new ones and the cycle continues. It's just for now, the obvious thing is it is frustrating how individuals, especially the younger audience, are being sacrificed, in my opinion, because the system promotes opportunism and prey for practical reasons. Those who are privileged enough to have the experience to take advantage of those who don't have experience. And it's not intentionally. Like, it's not intentful, it's not malicious, it's not personal. It's business. And the system reinforces that business. So no one's a villain here, in my opinion. No one is strictly intentionally being malicious to anyone else. They're all operating the best way they can to solve problems. Just one group, the target group that I'm frustrated for, is the group that don't even have tools to be able to be aware that they could come up with solutions. So for me, it's kind of like an adult being responsible and being liable and accountable for a younger person, or maybe an inexperienced person, not necessarily biologically younger, to have an opportunity to compete and be sustainable instead of being sacrificed to the system, to the business. So nowadays, kids just think like the job, like here's a hot take. Here's one last hot take for me. My job, the thing that I went out that felt like a lot of work, did a lot. My job was what made me such an efficient thinker. It made me the strong person who is able to overcome a lot of problems. However, it might not be for everyone, yet it's not for everyone, but it's also not for no one. That's a double negative, I understand. But that's kind of how people word things now, like the kids. Like, jobs are not inherently unfun, undesirable, lot of efforts. It can be rewarding, fun, passionate, It can reveal something about you you have no idea what I would do, but how would you look for that? No one's there telling you like, hey, you know, here are tools and mindset that you can do to make your job more rewarding, or here's something you can look for in your job. Here's a mindset you can use to make your job more enjoyable, or maybe view it in a larger scheme. This is a job, it's a stepping stone to reach another job, etc. No one's saying any of these things. They just say, get the job you dream of. Well, how do you even get there? No one's like, very few individuals are disseminating the steps and the process and the trade-offs of taking steps at a time. Like, my job was pretty miserable. Like, it was miserable, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And nowadays it's a non-issue. It's just get the one job that you wish you had, and that's it. Eyes on the prize. The one job. There isn't a successful adult human, in my opinion, and maybe someone will provide a very compelling argument and present a list, but is astronomically tiny. There isn't a singular adult successful human in both objective and subjective metrics that ever had one job, and their job was their dream job for the rest of their lives. However, it doesn't stop influencers from inherently, unintentionally, by the way, unintentionally, and not maliciously, unintentionally giving the impression to a younger audience that it's one job or the highway. It just isn't. And it could shape your entire life. One bad job experience could quite literally shape your life too. It's adversity breeds success as well. So I only say it like I'm being the contrarian because I want to contrast the mass information that people give you an impression of. Life is not a combination of how much your successes are. Life is a combination of failures and success, of disappointments and pleasant surprises. Understanding this or actualizing this in the context that's relevant to you is necessary. But me being 30, I cannot provide the context to someone that's 20. It would be something they have to discover themselves, because a person is only young once, or they're only inexperienced once in their lifetime, and yet no one is making even an effort. In my opinion, it feels like the vast majority of people don't even make an effort to understand that to understand what their community is based on. Like, I'm pretty sure YouTube gives the analytics. Last thing, I'm pretty sure the content creators, there are great content creators that pay attention to the analytics. Like, what is the makeup of their community? Are they more male, female, age groups? Those things in an organization, like in a government organization or a scientific organization, they pay attention to the pre-selection, the self-selection factor, their audience, their community. Like, what is it made of? How can we either improve that, the diversity? Like, Netflix and Disney gets a lot of flack for this all the time from, in my opinion, ignorant, self-centered, and ethnocentric people who say like, oh yeah, that's not important. Like, we don't have to be inclusive. We don't have to share other perspectives. But organizations concern themselves with this, much like why organizations concern themselves with the healthy growth of their youth. Because if you see that, oh, all your material is catered towards adults, and then you make for kids stuff, how is that appropriate? Like, it isn't. If you want to be more inclusive, then you bridge that gap. But content creators are just about, in general, do not have the analytical say in that. Often it gets, hopefully, a person who runs a business, hires someone who's well versed in that, like a PR person or a community manager or something. And you hope that that community manager has expertise in this. However, it doesn't, in my opinion, feel like there's an appropriateness on most of the contents. You have, let's just take a really bad actor, right? Bad actors are not, the representative of the majority, but, one great example is a content creator who constantly depict and do violent acts of apathetic behavior towards people, and they are well aware that 95% of their audience is below the age of 18 and have absolute no remorse or concern for how they almost single-handedly breed and condition indirectly. It's still their right to do so because there's no law against it or anything, or morality or ethics, but they're legitimate grooming a whole generation of kids to be toxic. Like, not even toxic in a sense of being malicious intentionally towards others. They're normalizing behavior that can hurt people. And there's no remorse or accountability for that. And that's what is really frustrating, in my opinion. It sucks that nowadays, in fact, I actually think the younger people, anyone in the teens, they treat each other with less tolerance and like they're meaner to each other than millennials and boomers had ever been to each other, because they're learning and normalizing all the behavior that the older generation is responsible for Zoomers that are responsible for. So Gen Alpha is getting the fallout of like, hey, it's fun to like punch someone in the face, just like, like, hey, when you have a disagreement, don't just do anything, but just go in the ring and punch each other's lights out. It's like, that's fun. It's really fun. And then you have kids like, oh yeah, that's just normal. Hey, I'm gonna punch you in the face. That's just normal because that's how we solve problems. That kind of thing. I mean, there's no other counter there. It's so popular. They don't have to see any other influencers who are trying to say, well, there are friends that just talk things out, but that's not exciting. It's not recommended by YouTube. It's not not recommended by the algorithm. Violence is. So now you just have these people like playing pranks on each other. Say, I like you. I just want to like shove you down the stairs because it's funny watching people fall down the stairs. Like, okay. I'm sorry. I hope that that we, at least older people, are not trying to normalize behavior that could possibly make people harm each other. Like kids harm each other inadvertently without knowing. And that is not that much different from me if I go out and just say, this is what you have to do. You have to do this or else you're just going to fail. And then you have this kid, it's like, well, I'm not any of those things. I guess I might as well just go in the corner and pretend my life is forfeit. That's not much different. It's not holding accountability for what you say. You're not feeling like, oh, wait, maybe I should say something else. Like, make sure that I'm not giving the incorrect impression by accident. Normalizing something that doesn't allow argument or clever thinking or lead a younger audience to think a little bit more, like challenge them. So like, for example, I can offer a story in my life and then I would offer counterpoints to my life. Just give yourself a think where you fit. Like, it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be this. Encourage people to think for themselves a bit. That's not what sells on the internet. So the next time you watch a YouTube channel and stuff, think how you can profit off that idea, but not how you can punish for not doing that idea. That's kind of my hot take for the day. I want individuals to know that solutions are presented, but they aren't the only solution. Stop, in my opinion, if I had a strong statement, stop thinking it's all or none. Just because there's an example of it doesn't mean it's the only solution. I so despise, in a very as light-hearted as I can, despise when people say this is the only reason. You are the only thing. No one, everyone. I get so depressed. I get like really disappointed when someone's lifestyle and mindset is that it's you either belong to group A or belong to group B. You can belong to the infinite groups between A and Z. Pick where you slide. There's an infinite array of combination of dynamic human behavior between A and Z. Pick 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, wherever. It's not just A and Z. Please save yourself, your self-esteem, and find something that works for you. It doesn't have to be 1 or 0. It can be anywhere between 1 or 0. Alright, with all that said, stay safe, stay healthy, guys. Stay skeptical. Take things in stride, and good luck. I'll see some of you tomorrow. Alright, take care. Bye now.